Hello everybody, and welcome to the next episode. Today I'm going to be going over implants and what are the benefits of implants, what is it specifically, and how does it work, and how long does it take? Because implant placement does take a while, although there are places now where they do implants and it doesn't take as long as it used to before because of different healing processes and stuff like that. And then some places decide to take a risk and put a crown and an abutment on an implant that's been freshly put in, which as of right now, there's not enough research to say if that's a good idea, because it does increase your chances of the implant failing. I'm gonna go over that more throughout the episode. As I always say, I'm not a dentist. What I do have is I have 10 years experience in the dental field, selling treatment plans, going over treatment plans with dentists, going over treatment plans with patients, explaining to them in the most simplest way and form for them to understand what it is that they have, why it is that they have it, and what can be done to take care of it. So without further ado, I'm going to start the episode. What is an implant? An implant is an artificial root that gets placed inside your jawbone in order to replace an existing tooth that you had there either recently or in the past, in order for you to continue eating and giving you the ability to chew again. So what are the benefits in comparison to a partial or a denture? One and the biggest one of all with implants is that you retain your bone, whatever you had there at that moment, which is great because if anything happens in the future, either it could be for with that implant or just if you just have those there, it helps prevent bone loss. One of the major benefits to an implant, which is more on a health issue for a dentist, is that when you place an implant in an area, it helps prevent you from losing bone. Now, what's the importance of that? Bone in your jawbone is what helps your other teeth stay in place, and it prevents them from moving. It also, for the longevity of your life, in the event that anything happens to that implant, say you have it fails for some reason, you always have the ability to place another implant. Now there are certain specific situations. For example, if you have periodontal disease, which I went over in the last episode, and I'm going to go over in this episode, what is the importance of taking care of your periodontal disease and how it affects your implants. You do have, again, the ability to be able to place another implant there, whereas if you have a partial or a denture, which doesn't prevent bone loss, you could eventually not have the ability of being able to place an implant in those areas. And also a bridge also doesn't prevent the loss of bone in the area where the tooth is missing. Now, like I said before in a prior episode for when I went over it during root canals, you want to prevent yourself from losing bone in your jaw, primarily because your jaw is fairly thick and it can take a big beating, not only from blows and stuff like that, but even from eating. So the issue, what happens when you don't have bone in the area because you've lost all your teeth and your jawbone starts to reduce, your jaw actually becomes a lot weaker because it's getting thinner, the bone there, it's not able of taking much impact. And it can be from chewing. It can be something as like if somebody slaps you across the face environmentally or jokingly and stuff, it can cause a pain. If you're walking and the door slams in your face and it hits you in the jaw, if you're a person that has all your teeth are gone, and for a very long period of time, and you have a weak jaw, then that could potentially cause your jaw to break, and it's going to take a longer time for it to heal. Specifically also because your jaw is not strong enough anymore. So here I have a diagram that I want to go over, that I want to show you guys, so you can see what happens when you have your teeth removed and what's the difference between when you have your teeth as opposed to when you don't, and the jawbone loss that happens throughout time. So here I have a diagram. This is a healthy mandibular, a healthy jawbone, where the teeth are all in place, and then you have the jaw, which is right underneath the bone, or underneath the teeth, and then you have the jaw, which is right underneath the bone, which is there to hold your teeth in place. When you get an extraction, in this case it shows here all the teeth are extracted, your mandible or your jawbone automatically goes down and gets weaker because the tooth is not there anymore. So your body immediately starts removing the jaw that's there, because there are no teeth there. And now your teeth are connected through nerves, and those nerves let your brain know that they have to send nutrients to this area, so therefore the bone doesn't keep receding. But when you remove a tooth, your body, your brain specifically, because it doesn't detect the nerve that's connected to that tooth, it immediately goes into, we don't need that anymore. It's pretty much a lose it or use it. So it's the same thing I explained during the root canal. This is the exact same thing. So because it's not using the area, then the jawbone that's there starts to decay with time, until eventually you have just a severe bone loss. And so if you notice here, your jawbone becomes a lot thinner, making it a lot weaker, as opposed to here or even here. So this is the reason for why you want to keep your teeth in your mouth, because it prevents this from happening. And in the event that you do lose a tooth, pretty much the only option you have in order to prevent bone loss is to get an implant. And yes, implants are expensive and they can take a long time, but the health benefits of an implant, there's really nothing in the market that is comparable to that. And it's worth a lot, because like I said, the one benefit to having an implant is that in the event that later in the future you lose it, something happens where you run the danger of losing your implant outside of having periodontal disease, you have the ability to be able to place the implant in that area again. Now, there's different ways of using an implant. You can use an implant on a single area. If you have one tooth, like say, for example, most people care for when it's in the front because that's what you smile and that's what everybody sees. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is also, if by chance you have an area where you're missing teeth, you can also use it to make a bridge. And then in the event that you lose all your teeth, you can do it via mini implants, or regular implants. Use it as a form to hold a denture in place. And we do have other things that you can do which are not removable. So for example, if you get many implants with a denture is removable. You do have to remove it every so often to clean it. But there are other procedures. There are other prostheses, which are pretty much a fake tooth, a prosthetics. So like a fake arm, a fake leg, things like that. Well, we do have that for your teeth. Every denture, crown are considered prosthetics. So with that being said, there are certain prosthetics that you can get done that are not movable. They're permanently there. You just have to take care of it. And you also have to make sure, just like if you had your natural teeth, just because you have an implant or you have a denture or you have a partial, it does not exclude you from having to go to the dentist. You always have to go to the dentist because you have to get your checkups. And the dentist is really the only person that can, when they do x-rays and when they check your mouth, check the health of the implant in your body. Because it is a foreign object, and your body, there are very small cases, very, very small cases where a person can become allergic to the implant. It is very minimal. Personally speaking, out of the 10 years that I've had in the dental field, I believe I've only seen one person whose body just didn't take the implant, and the person was a lot older. They're very late in their ages, and that's primarily why it happened. But for the most part, it's not something that's common. It's not something that's even rare. It's more of like legendary, honestly, to say the truth. So you really don't have to worry so much about allergies. But again, it's something that you want to come and you want to get checked. Now, one of the things that I referenced earlier was periodontal disease and how it has an effect on your implants. Just because you get an implant does not mean that you are immune to getting periodontal disease. The reason why is because periodontal disease is something that does not attack the tooth. It is something that attacks primarily your jawbone. So when you get an implant, you're actually more susceptible to periodontal disease if you already have it. And the reason why is because your gums, while they're still there and they're with the implant, the gums are really on top of the jawbone. They're not attached to your implant. So that space where your implant is, the periodontal disease has actually an easier way of getting into your jawbone. And if you get periodontal disease, again, if you had it before and you don't have it anymore, but if that happens, you are more than likely going to lose your jawbone that's holding your implant a lot faster than if it was a natural tooth. So if you're a person that has periodontal disease, you need to have that taken care of. Once you have it taken care of, and then you get the implant, you have to make sure that you maintain that implant in that area from it getting periodontal disease. Now, there are a lot of things that you can buy on the stores that are specific for cleaning implants, partials, bridges, and the area around them, because you want to make sure, especially if you have periodontal disease, that those areas don't get infected with periodontal disease again. And it is super important because, again, one, you've made a really big investment in the health of your mouth, and two, you don't want that investment to go to waste. Because I don't care who you are or how much money you make, when you invest in something for the long term and then it doesn't come out the way you are, you're going to be upset. And unfortunately, when you have periodontal disease, or if you get it during any of these procedures that are done, you do run the higher risk of losing that and losing that money. And so, it's very important to get that taken care of. So what are the benefits? I've already spoken about one of the benefits to having an implant, which has to do specifically with you don't have any bone loss. And what are the negatives? There really aren't much negatives outside of being expensive, obviously. And then also the healing process in your mouth takes a while. Now, everybody's different, and it's really dependent on your age and your body as a whole. Because some people, not everybody is the same. Everybody's different, and how their body reacts, how their body heals, how their body works, period, is completely unique to the individual. So here are a couple of advantages and disadvantages to having an implant. One, the advantage is that it's a long-term plan. So again, when you get an implant, it's something that's for a long time. Two, it restores your chewing. Again, so if you have molars, or even if you have a front tooth for cutting, or your molars for chewing, it gives you that ability back. Now, it does not mean that crown has the same strength as your natural tooth. Just like I said before, when you get a root canal, or even if you get a denture or a partial, these these prosthetics are not equally as strong as your teeth. There is nothing right now that exists that equals the strength of your natural teeth. So what does that mean? It means you can eat normally, but if you have a habit of chewing ice, if you have a habit of eating bone, if you have the habit of opening beer bottles with your tooth, you cannot do these things with these crowns, because they are not that strong and they're more than likely going to break. Another thing too, if you're a person that has bruxism, which is when you grind your teeth, then it is super, super important to have that taken care of. And it can be something as easy as getting a night guard, which is it's the customary mouthpiece that goes in your mouth when you sleep. Because most people, when they grind their teeth, it's mostly during their sleep. It prevents you from putting that pressure, that jaw pressure that you have on these prosthetics, and it prevents them from breaking, which is super important. It's something that you definitely want to prevent from happening. So what's the one thing which I said before, which is it helps prevent bone loss, which is super, super important. So what are the disadvantages? Like I said, it's expensive. It requires an incision in the gum, it's not really much of a disadvantage, to say the truth. It can take 2 to 3 months to heal. So the reason why it takes that long is because once they put the implant, your natural bone has to wrap around the implant, and to make sure that it doesn't move and it stays there. There are multiple office visits, because once the implant is done, obviously, then you have to come back a couple other times, more than a couple, but like 3 or 4 times potentially, to make sure that everything is going well, that it's that the healing is going good. You also have to get a healing cap later, and it's multiple visits. They're not frequent, but throughout the months you do have to come back multiple times. And it may need a bone grafting. Now, the reason why it may need a bone grafting is entirely dependent on how the area is prior to putting the implant. So, for example, if you're a person that has periodontal disease and you have a tooth that has to be removed, depending on the level of bone that you have, you are going to more than likely need bone grafting to replenish the bone that's there, so that way you can place the implant on it. And the reason why you may have to do that also, just to explain on how bone grafting works, it would be the same as like if you were to put a screw onto a very thin piece of wood. So if you put a screw onto a piece of wood that's it's a lot thinner than the actual screw is, the screw is going to be sticking out. You're going to actually see the inside parts of the screw, and the screw is going to be easily removable. So for example, if you have a tree, just like I said before, and you have an area that doesn't have that much dirt in it, if you place a tree there, the tree is not strong enough to be stable. So if any strong winds or a hurricane or something like that comes into the way, and there's not enough dirt to hold the root of the tree, then the tree is more than likely going to fall over. So your implants are the same way. If you don't have enough jawbone in the area, then an implant is more than likely going to fail because there's not enough of the jawbone holding it in place. So when that happens, you will more than likely need a bone grafting. And the bone grafting is just going to fill up the area, just like if you would just put more dirt in an area before you put the tree. And that's going to make it possible for when they put the implant inside, it's going to hold in place. So that's one of the reasons for why you will more than likely need bone grafting. There are other situations. For example, if you were to get a tooth that's already failing and you get it extracted, they need to do bone grafting in that area because the hole is there from when they did the extraction. So they place the bone grafting in there, and then they place the implant normally on the same day. And then there's another situation too that's kind of, so it happens not at random, but it's not something that's common. So if you have a tooth extracted, and it also more likely ties to people that have periodontal disease. For the most part that I've seen, it's mostly people that have periodontal disease. I haven't seen a situation where it's somebody who doesn't have periodontal disease and this happens to them. But if you have periodontal disease and then you have a tooth that has to be extracted, there are times, especially on the upper part here next to your nostrils, there is a chance that when they do the extraction, and even if they were to put bone grafting, the bone grafting could fail, because it just doesn't pick up, it doesn't grab itself to the jawbone area, and in those situations, the implant will more than likely fail. It'll just fall off. So in those cases, you unfortunately don't have the choice of getting an implant. You just have to get either a bridge or a partial. But that, again, it's not something that is very common. I believe that maybe in the 10 years that I've been working in dentistry, I've seen 2 people where that's happened to, where they did the bone grafting, they placed the implant, and the body just didn't pick up the bone grafting, and because of it, the implant failed. So it can happen, but again, it's a very small percentage of people that happens to. But it's good to know, because if it happens to you, then at least you know why it happened. So those are reasons for why an implant would fail, and also situations where you would need bone grafting. Granted, on the third option, it'll fail regardless, but it's not because of the bone grafting. It's more because your body just reacted that way. So that's pretty much all there is to implants. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down in the bottom, and then I will look at them and be able to answer your questions. In the event that I miss something, then please point it out and ask me the question, and I'm more than happy to respond to it. Subscribe, and also click on the bell notification, so whenever we upload a video, you get you get the notification for the video being up, and that way you never miss any episodes. But as always, flourish and prosper, and have a good day.